May we request everyone who are still outside to enter the plenary session.
𝘍𝘀𝘴𝘪𝘵𝘪, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. 173,000 square kilometers of shorelines are stretched out across the region. Over 25% of all known plant and animal species can be found here. Around 33% of all the mangrove species can be found in ASEAN, as well as 33% of the global number of seagrass species, and 70% of global coral reef species. 46% of ASEAN's total land area is covered in lush and diverse forest ecosystems. All these can be found in this small area, which covers only 3% of the Earth's total area. With the natural treasures that can only be found here, the ASEAN member states formed the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, or the ACB, in 2005 as the Region's Center for Excellence for Biodiversity. Since its establishment, the ACB has been supporting the ASEAN member states' efforts to conserve and sustainably use the region's biological resources. Through the ACB's active efforts to conserve the rich natural treasures in ASEAN, the center has been chosen by the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity as one of the regional and sub-regional support centers across the globe.
Good morning to ladies and gentlemen. Please stand by because the opening ceremony is about to begin. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
To perform its mandate, the ACB has been designing and implementing programs that are focused on biodiversity conservation, capacity development, communication, education, and public awareness, knowledge management, mainstreaming biodiversity, resource mobilization and partnerships, sustainable use and access and benefit sharing. Through the years, the ACB has spearheaded numerous conservation initiatives in the region. One of the most notable is the ASEAN Heritage Parks Program, or AHPs. These are outstanding protected areas in ASEAN that have high conservation importance and preserve a complete spectrum of ecosystems representative of the ASEAN region. The ACB serves as the secretariat of the AHP program. The ACB is likewise the secretariat of the ASEAN Green Initiative, or the AGI, a region-wide recognition program that supports national greening initiatives and shares the common aim of increasing tree cover and restoring ecosystems by encouraging the active participation of various sectors. Since 2017, the ACB has been holding the ASEAN Biodiversity Heroes program, which recognizes the important work of individuals from the ASEAN member states for their outstanding contributions to biodiversity conservation in their respective countries and to the region. The ACB maintains the ASEAN Clearinghouse Mechanism, which contains an inventory of biological resources of the ASEAN region. This serves as a platform for presenting a growing collection of knowledge products that can support well-informed and science-based policy and decision-making in ASEAN. The ACB also publishes the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook, which showcases the developments in biodiversity-related actions in the region. The ACB is managed by a governing board composed of the ASEAN senior officials on the environment and the ASEAN Secretary General. The governing board provides policy guidance to the ACB. For technical
Dear
guidance,
distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please stand by because the opening ceremony is about to begin. Thank you very much.
is composed of the national focal points responsible for biodiversity. The ACB is headed by an executive director who is assisted by experts in the areas of program development, biodiversity knowledge management, finance and administration, and communication. With the successful implementation of numerous programs and projects, the ACB has built its stature as the partner of choice for biodiversity conservation initiatives in the ASEAN. The number of conservation partners of the ACB, both from within and beyond the region, continues to grow. To continuously and effectively address the challenge of biodiversity loss, everyone's participation is needed. One of the ways you can help is by contributing to the ASEAN Biodiversity Fund, or ABF. The ABF serves as a crucial financial depository for the ACB and its partners. The ABF acts as a central financial hub for managing and allocating funds dedicated to biodiversity conservation and sustainable development initiatives within the ASEAN region, as well as handling day-to-day financial transactions and disbursements related to ACB's operations, projects, and activities. Be part of the solution by partnering with the ACB. Do more for nature to secure a better future. I am ASEAN Biodiversity. You are ASEAN Biodiversity. We are ASEAN Biodiversity.
Our ASEAN heritage parks also have their own stories to tell on how these protected areas all over the region have contributed to wellness and healing.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, please arise for the singing of ASEAN hymn, please. Thank you. Please be seated. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to stage for the opening performance.
tuổi trẻ đánh đang buồn thuộc hẹn sau nhiều điều nhỏ bé có bên lại
for the impressive opening performance. Dear honorable guests, dear participants, my name is 𝘕𝘠 and I am honored to accompany you at the opening ceremony of the 8th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference, AHP8. Thank you very much for joining us in this journey. Dear distinguished guests, in today's context, nature conservation is the responsibility of all of us. Nature not only provides the necessary resources for life, but also forms the foundation for health and sustainable development of society. With the theme ASEAN Heritage Parks, ASEAN's contribution to achieving the Biodiversity Plan, AHP8 is hosted by the government of Vietnam through the Nature and Biodiversity Conservation Agency and the Provincial People's Committee of Quảng Ninh Province. The AHP8 is organized by the ACB with support from the European Union, the KfW Development Bank through the ACB Smart Grants Program, Metro Pacific Investment Corp, and IMA World Health. Today, we not only open this event, but also reaffirm our commitment to protecting our nature heritage. And now, I would like to introduce the presence of the distinguished guests and delegates. First of all, please join me in welcoming Dr. 𝘕𝘓𝘡𝘁, Vice Minister, Ministry of Agriculture and Environment. Please welcome Mr. Nguyễn Văn Công, Vice Chairman, Provincial People's Committee of Quảng Ninh Province. Please welcome Dr. 𝘍𝘬𝘰𝘥𝘪𝘵𝘀, Executive Director, ASEAN Center of Biodiversity. Please join me in welcoming Mr. 𝘠𝑦𝑎nh, Director for Sustainable Development, ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, ASEAN Secretariat. Please welcome Mr. Cyril Larcel, First Secretary, Delegation of the European Union to Vietnam. Please welcome Dr. Bùi Chính Nghĩa, Director General of the Nature and Biodiversity Conservation Agency. And please welcome Mr. Vũ Duy Văn, Deputy Director General of the Department of Agriculture and Environment, Quảng Ninh Province. And now, distinguished guests, to kick off the program, please turn your attention to stage as we welcome Dr. 𝘕𝘓𝘡𝘁, Vice Minister, Ministry of Agriculture and Environment, who will officially open the plenary session. Please give a round of applause to welcome.
Kính thưa ông Nguyễn Văn Công, Phó Chủ tịch Ủy ban nhân dân tỉnh Quảng Ninh. Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu đại diện cho Ban thư ký ASEAN Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu và toàn thể hội nghị, hôm nay trong bầu không khí trang trọng, ấm áp tình hữu nghị ASEAN, chúng ta vinh dự có mặt tại hội nghị này. Hội nghị Vườn Di sản ASEAN lần thứ 8 được tổ chức tại tỉnh Quảng Ninh, vùng đất có rừng ươm biển, biển tựa núi, có di sản thiên nhiên thế giới Hạ Long. Cho phép tôi thay mặt cho Bộ Nông nghiệp và Môi trường Việt Nam xin gửi đến các quý vị đại biểu lời chúc mừng nồng nhiệt nhất. Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu, như các quý vị đại biểu đã biết, Đông Nam Á của chúng ta là vùng đất có tính đa dạng sinh học rất cao và độc đáo và bậc nhất của hành tinh. Ở đây chỉ chiếm khoảng gần 2% diện tích của toàn cầu, nhưng khu vực ASEAN đã chiếm tới gần 20% tổng số loài sinh vật của toàn cầu. Những cánh rừng xanh bạt ngàn, những rừng san hô rực rỡ từ biển, những vùng đất ngập mặn kỳ diệu, tất cả làm nên sự phong phú vô giá của ASEAN chúng ta. Tuy nhiên, cùng với sự phát triển kinh tế xã hội mạnh mẽ trong nhiều thập kỷ qua, thiên nhiên cũng đã phải trả giá. Biến đổi khí hậu, diễn biến cực đoan, suy thoái rừng, ô nhiễm môi trường và sự biến mất của nhiều loài sinh vật đặt ra cho chúng ta những thách thức chưa từng có. Mỗi năm, khu vực ASEAN mất khoảng trên 1 vạn hecta rừng tự nhiên, nhiều loài quý hiếm có nguy cơ tuyệt chủng. Các hệ sinh thái là nền tảng của sinh kế của hàng triệu người, của từng hàng triệu hộ gia đình đã bị tổn thương nghiêm trọng. Những câu hỏi đó đã đặt ra rất lớn cho chúng ta là nếu các thế hệ sau có còn được thấy những cánh rừng già, những loài động vật độc đáo, đặc hữu mà chúng ta đang có ngày hôm nay không? Liệu ASEAN có còn giữ được bản sắc thiên nhiên giàu có, vốn là niềm tự hào của nhân loại ngày hôm nay hay không? Chính từ những lo lắng, trăn trở đó, sáng kiến mạng lưới Vườn Di sản ASEAN đã ra đời và trở thành biểu tượng hợp tác mạnh mẽ của các quốc gia trong khu vực của chúng ta. Mỗi khu di sản được công nhận không chỉ là một vùng rừng, một vùng đất hay một vùng biển, và đó là một lời cam kết, mà là một sứ mệnh và niềm tin tương lai bền vững của toàn khối ASEAN chúng ta. Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu, đối với Việt Nam của chúng tôi, công tác bảo tồn thiên nhiên luôn được gắn liền với truyền thống văn hóa ngàn đời. Từ bao đời nay, rừng và biển đã nuôi dưỡng cuộc sống của con người Việt. Như lời dạy của Chủ tịch Hồ Chí Minh kính yêu của chúng tôi đã căn dặn, rừng là vàng, nếu biết giữ gìn và bảo vệ thì rừng trở nên rất quý. Với Việt Nam chúng tôi hiện nay có 173 khu bảo tồn thiên nhiên, trong đó có 35 vườn quốc gia, hàng chục khu dự trữ thiên nhiên, khu bảo tồn loài sinh cảnh, khu bảo tồn biển, khu Ramsar và hàng loạt các khu rừng đặc dụng có giá trị nổi bật toàn cầu. Các địa danh nổi bật của chúng tôi như Cúc Phương, Phong Nha Kẻ Bàng, Hoàng Liên, Tràm Chim, Côn Đảo, Bái Tử Long, Cát Bà, vân vân đã trở thành niềm tự hào không chỉ của người Việt và của cả khu vực ASEAN đối với thế giới. Trong mạng lưới Vườn Di sản ASEAN, Việt Nam có nhiều khu được lựa chọn và tới nay thì đã có 15 khu được lựa chọn nhờ các giá trị đa dạng sinh học, cảnh quan đặc sắc và mô hình quản lý hiệu quả. Đây chính là một minh chứng rõ ràng là cam kết mạnh mẽ của Việt Nam trong nỗ lực bảo vệ tài nguyên thiên nhiên trong khối ASEAN. Hôm nay, hội nghị của Vườn Di sản ASEAN lần thứ 8 diễn ra tại vùng đất di sản thiên nhiên thế giới, được 3 lần được di sản thiên nhiên thế giới, là công nhận được di sản thiên nhiên thế giới. Điều đó càng nhận rõ thấy rằng trách nhiệm của Việt Nam trong nỗ lực góp phần chung trong cộng đồng về bảo vệ thiên nhiên. Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu, Hội nghị di sản ASEAN lần thứ 8 là một diễn đàn quan trọng để chúng ta tổng kết chặng đường đã qua, cùng với chia sẻ kinh nghiệm và đề ra các giải pháp trong tương lai. Với trách nhiệm của một nước thành viên tích cực, chủ động, Việt Nam xin đề nghị với ASEAN trong thời gian tới một số nội dung sau. Mặc dù hôm nay thì lãnh đạo Ban Thư ký ASEAN không có đây, tuy nhiên có các đại diện của Ban Thư ký ASEAN, tôi mong rằng những ý kiến không chỉ của Việt Nam mà của các nước thành viên khác cũng sẽ được chuyển tới Ban Thư ký ASEAN. Thứ nhất, ASEAN là một trụ cột cần tăng cường hợp tác, đổi mới công nghệ và khoa học trong hoạt động bảo tồn, nhất là trong bối cảnh biến đổi khí hậu diễn ra khó lường, thì việc ứng dụng khoa học công nghệ hiện đại như viễn thám, trí tuệ nhân tạo, GIC, v.v. vào hoạt động bảo tồn là một giải pháp đột phá và cần thiết. Vì vậy, Việt Nam đề nghị ASEAN mở rộng hợp tác nghiên cứu, phát triển cơ sở và chia sẻ dữ liệu và xây dựng một nền tảng chung của ASEAN phục vụ việc giám sát đa dạng sinh học được tốt hơn. Thứ hai, đề nghị ASEAN tăng cường hợp tác liên quốc gia, thúc đẩy mạng lưới khu bảo tồn kết nối vì nhiều loài di cư, nhiều loài hệ sinh thái trải từ quốc gia này sang quốc gia khác. Do vậy, chúng ta cần thúc đẩy các sáng kiến bảo tồn xuyên biên giới, chia sẻ các mô hình quản lý cộng đồng hiệu quả và có sự kết nối giữa các vườn di sản để tạo ra một ASEAN xanh liên thông. Thứ ba, cộng đồng các địa phương chính là các chủ thể của công tác quản lý tài nguyên thiên nhiên. Khi người dân được tham gia, được hưởng ứng, được trao quyền thì rừng mới bền vững, đa dạng sinh học mới được bảo vệ. Vì vậy, đề nghị ASEAN nghiên cứu các mô hình đã thành công về chi trả dịch vụ môi trường rừng, phát triển du lịch sinh thái cộng đồng, mô hình bảo vệ gắn với người dân cộng đồng để chia sẻ cho các nước trong khối ASEAN của chúng ta. Thứ tư, huy động một nguồn tài chính là nguồn lực xanh để cho bảo tồn cần thiết như tài chính xanh, tín chỉ carbon, quỹ bảo tồn thiên nhiên, đối tác công tư. Từ đó sẽ tạo ra một dòng tiền bền vững để giúp cho các khu bảo tồn được hiệu quả hơn. Chính vì vậy, chúng tôi đề nghị ASEAN nghiên cứu và phổ biến các cơ chế hiện có ở trong khối như thị trường carbon, thu hút các doanh nghiệp, các tổ chức quốc tế tham gia vào công tác bảo tồn để đảm bảo bảo tồn đi đôi với phát triển. Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu, từ Quảng Ninh hôm nay, nơi núi non kỳ vĩ hòa vào biển, chúng ta được nhắc nhở rằng thiên nhiên không chỉ là tài sản mà còn là tâm hồn của dân tộc. Những cảnh quan tuyệt đẹp của ASEAN, những khu rừng, những sinh cảnh độc đáo chính là những nguồn cảm hứng vô tận, là nền tảng cho sự phát triển ổn định, thịnh vượng và an ninh khu vực của chúng ta. Thiên nhiên đã ban tặng cho ASEAN điều kỳ diệu và giờ đây thế giới của chúng ta phải trả lời câu hỏi: chúng ta có đủ quyết tâm để bảo vệ những giá trị ấy hay không? Chúng ta có thể khác nhau về văn hóa, về ngôn ngữ hay về trình độ phát triển, nhưng chúng ta có chung bầu không khí để hít thở, chung dòng sông để sinh sống, chung đại dương để hướng về và chung tương lai để bảo vệ. Vì vậy, bảo tồn thiên nhiên không chỉ là trách nhiệm của từng quốc gia mà là trách nhiệm của tập thể ASEAN. Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu, Hội nghị Vườn Di sản ASEAN lần thứ 8 không chỉ là một sự kiện mà đó là một lời hứa, lời cam kết chung và là một minh chứng khát vọng cho chúng ta cùng xây dựng một ASEAN xanh, hòa bình và bền vững. Nhân dịp này, Việt Nam xin trân trọng cảm ơn Ban thư ký ASEAN, các quốc gia thành viên, các tổ chức quốc tế đã luôn đồng hành, hỗ trợ Việt Nam trong suốt quá trình bảo tồn thiên nhiên và phát triển đa dạng sinh học bền vững. Chúng tôi gửi lời cảm ơn sâu sắc đến lãnh đạo tỉnh Quảng Ninh, đặc biệt là đồng chí Nguyễn Văn Công. Trong thời gian vừa qua đã chỉ đạo để đi đầu phát triển trong việc phát triển kinh tế xanh và bảo tồn thiên nhiên, đồng thời đã chuẩn bị chu đáo để tổ chức Hội nghị Vườn Di sản ASEAN thành công như hôm nay. Xin kính chúc các quý vị đại biểu sức khỏe, hạnh phúc và thành công. Chúc hội nghị chúng ta thành công tốt đẹp. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn.
Thank you, Dr. 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠 for the inspiring opening remarks. Dear distinguished guests, to give us another welcome message, it's my privilege to welcome on stage Mr. Nguyễn Văn Công, Vice Chairman, Provincial People's Committee of Quảng Ninh Province. Please join me in welcoming him.
Kính thưa đồng chí Nguyễn Quốc Trị, Thứ trưởng Bộ Nông nghiệp và Môi trường. Kính thưa các đồng chí đại diện cho lãnh đạo Ban Thư ký ASEAN. Kính thưa toàn thể quý đại biểu, các nhà khoa học, các chuyên gia bảo tồn và các đại diện của các tổ chức quốc tế. Hôm nay, trong không khí trang trọng, thắm tình hữu nghị của cộng đồng ASEAN, tỉnh Quảng Ninh vô cùng vinh dự và tự hào được lựa chọn là nơi đăng cai tổ chức Hội nghị Vườn Di sản ASEAN lần thứ 8. Lời đầu tiên, thay mặt cho các đồng chí lãnh đạo tỉnh Quảng Ninh và nhân dân các dân tộc tỉnh Quảng Ninh, tôi xin gửi tới các đồng chí lãnh đạo các bộ, ban, ngành, trung ương, lãnh đạo Ban Thư ký ASEAN cùng toàn thể các quý đại biểu, các vị khách quý, lời chào mừng nồng nhiệt nhất. Chào mừng quý vị đã đến với Quảng Ninh, vùng đất di sản, nơi được ví như một Việt Nam thu nhỏ đầy quyến rũ và mến khách. Kính thưa quý đại biểu, chúng ta đang sống trong một giai đoạn mà nhân loại đang phải đối mặt với những thách thức chưa từng có về môi trường. Biến đổi khí hậu, suy giảm đa dạng sinh học và ô nhiễm môi trường đang đặt ra những bài toán cấp bách, đòi hỏi sự chung tay và hành động quyết liệt từ mọi quốc gia. Trong bối cảnh đó, Hội nghị Vườn Di sản ASEAN lần thứ 8 với chủ đề Vườn Di sản ASEAN, đóng góp của ASEAN vào việc đạt được kế hoạch đa dạng sinh học mang một ý nghĩa đặc biệt quan trọng. Đây không chỉ là một dịp để chúng ta gặp gỡ, trao đổi kinh nghiệm thường niên, mà còn là diễn đàn để chiến lược, để khẳng định cam kết mạnh mẽ của khu vực ASEAN đối với cộng đồng quốc tế. Với mạng lưới 69 vườn di sản trên toàn khu vực, hệ thống AHP chính là những lá chắn xanh vững chắc, là kho tàng gen quý giá và là sinh kế bền vững cho hàng triệu người. Việc quý vị đại diện ở đây hôm nay là minh chứng sống động cho tinh thần đoàn kết, trách nhiệm và khát vọng chung của chúng ta về một tương lai xanh, nơi con người và thiên nhiên cùng chung sống hài hòa và thịnh vượng. Kính thưa hội nghị, đến với Quảng Ninh, quý vị đang đặt chân đến một vùng đất có vị trí địa chính trị, kinh tế đặc biệt của Việt Nam, cũng là nơi sở hữu giá trị thiên nhiên đặc sắc. Chúng tôi tự hào sở hữu Vịnh Hạ Long, di sản thiên nhiên thế giới đã 3 lần được UNESCO vinh danh. Bên cạnh đó, chúng tôi cũng vinh dự là nơi có vườn quốc gia Bái Tử Long, vườn di sản ASEAN thứ 38 của khu vực. Sự đa dạng từ cảnh quan, đảo đá, hang động đến các hệ sinh thái rừng ngập mặn, rạn san hô và rừng nhiệt đới đã tạo nên một Quảng Ninh độc đáo và khác biệt. Tuy nhiên, là một trung tâm phát triển kinh tế sôi động, Quảng Ninh cũng từng đứng trước những mâu thuẫn gay gắt giữa phát triển công nghiệp khai khoáng và bảo tồn phát triển các giá trị du lịch. Nhận thức rõ điều đó, trong suốt một thập kỷ qua, tỉnh Quảng Ninh đã kiên định thực hiện chiến lược chuyển đổi mô hình tăng trưởng từ lâu sang xanh. Chúng tôi xác định thiên nhiên, văn hóa là nguồn nội lực, nội sinh và là động lực cho sự phát triển bền vững. Quảng Ninh đã và đang thực hiện nghiêm ngặt quy hoạch bảo tồn đa dạng sinh học, nói không với các dự án xâm hại môi trường dù lợi ích kinh tế trước mắt có lớn đến đâu. Tiên phong trong các sáng kiến giảm thiểu rác thải nhựa đại dương và phục hồi các hệ sinh thái ven bờ. Những nỗ lực này không chỉ bảo vệ ngôi nhà chung cho người dân Quảng Ninh mà là còn là trách nhiệm của chúng tôi đối với các di sản thế giới và ASEAN đã tin tưởng trao gửi. Kính thưa quý đại biểu, trong chương trình nghị sự của hội nghị lần này bao gồm nhiều nội dung rất thiết thực và chuyên sâu, từ vấn đề phục hồi sinh thái, các giải pháp dựa vào thiên nhiên cho đến các bài toán khó về tài chính bền vững cho công tác bảo tồn. Tôi đặc biệt đánh giá cao việc hội nghị dành sự quan tâm đến vai trò của cộng đồng địa phương và thế hệ trẻ. Bảo tồn thiên nhiên sẽ không thể thành công nếu thiếu sự tham gia của người dân bản địa, những người chủ thực sự từ rừng và biển, và thiếu đi bầu nhiệt huyết của thanh niên, những chủ nhân tương lai của hành tinh này. Tôi kỳ vọng rằng trong những ngày làm việc sắp tới, các nhà quản lý, các chuyên gia, các nhà khoa học sẽ cùng nhau thảo luận cởi mở, thẳng thắn để đưa những sáng kiến đột phá. Chúng tôi mong chờ những giải pháp từ Hạ Long sẽ được hình thành và góp phần giải quyết những thách thức chung của khu vực, nâng cao năng lực quản trị các vườn di sản và kết nối hiệu quả hơn các nguồn lực quốc tế. Kính thưa toàn thể quý đại biểu, trong khuôn khổ hội nghị, ban tổ chức đã sắp xếp chương trình tham quan thực địa trên Vịnh Hạ Long. Chúng tôi trân trọng mời quý vị hãy dành thời gian để hòa mình vào thiên nhiên hùng vĩ ở nơi đây, để cảm nhận tiếng sóng vỗ vào vách đá màu xanh ngọc bích của biển cả và bầu khí quyển trong lành. Chúng tôi hy vọng vẻ đẹp của di sản thiên nhiên thế giới sẽ mang lại cho quý vị những giây phút thư giãn tuyệt vời, đồng thời truyền thêm cảm hứng và động lực cho sứ mệnh cao cả của chúng ta đang theo đuổi. Một lần nữa, thay mặt cho các đồng chí lãnh đạo tỉnh Quảng Ninh, Tôi xin kính chúc đồng chí Thứ trưởng, các đồng chí đại diện lãnh đạo Ban Thư ký ASEAN cùng toàn thể quý vị đại biểu sức khỏe. Chúc Hội nghị Vườn Di sản ASEAN lần thứ 8 thành công rực rỡ. Chúc sự hợp tác ASEAN về bảo tồn thiên nhiên ngày càng bền chặt, hiệu quả và lan tỏa. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn.
Thank you, Mr. 𝘠𝘕𝘠𝘠𝘠. Dear distinguished guests, for the next section, I would like to invite the Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, ACB, Mr. Dr. 𝘕𝘮𝑚𝑒 to deliver his remarks. Please welcome.
To our very eminent guests, Dr. 𝘠𝘦𝘢𝘨𝘐, Vice Minister, Ministry of Agriculture and Environment of Vietnam, Mr. 𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝑉𝑎𝑛 Vice Chairman, Provincial People's Committee of Quang Minh Province, His Royal Highness Prince Omar Ali, the Curator of Natural History and Manager of the TASEC Marimbum ASEAN Heritage Park, Director 𝘕𝘠𝑛𝑦𝘠𝑛, Director of the Sustainable Development Directorate of the ASEAN for Socio-Cultural Community of the ASEAN Secretariat, Mr. Cyril Louisel, First Secretary Delegation of the European Union to Vietnam, Mr. 𝘕𝘂𝑦𝑒𝑛𝑦𝑒, Director General of the Nature and Biodiversity Conservation Agency, Mr. 𝘠𝑣_𝑑𝑢y_van, Deputy Director General of the Department of Agriculture and Environment, Quang Minh Province, Excellencies, distinguished representatives from the ASEAN member states and from the ASEAN Secretariat, dedicated park managers and staff of our ASEAN Heritage Parks, conservation partners from the academe, private sector, and indigenous peoples and local communities, and of course our youth, resource speakers, my dear colleagues from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. A warm welcome and good morning to all of you, or must I say, Kin Chao? Oh, no response. Kin Chao? Kin Chao. Thank you. Okay, now I know you're listening to all of us. I am humbled to stand before you to officially open the 8th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference, or the AHP8, a legacy of our strong commitment as one region to nurture, preserve, and protect the abundant natural wealth in Southeast Asia that serves as a lifeline for our people. We are gathered here in Ha Long City in Quang Minh Province, Vietnam, world-renowned for its breathtaking landscape and seascape and vibrant culture, as we have witnessed this morning. An ideal venue for this conference celebrating the best of the best protected areas in ASEAN. A round of applause, please, for everyone. And there's an outstanding invitation for us to enjoy the beauty of Quang Minh Province. Sorry to say, everyone, I already beat you to it. Last Sunday, I already experienced the beauty and wonders of Ha Long Bay. And I hope many of you will enjoy it this coming Friday. As the Secretariat to the ASEAN Heritage Parks, or AHP program, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity organizes the AHP conference every 3 years to gather AHP stakeholders like yourselves, experts, policymakers, indigenous peoples, youth. Can I ask the youth to stand up, please, to be recognized? Where are you? There you go. Our future, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, our community leaders who are among us today. Development partners, thank you for your generous support in making this possible. And relevant sectors such as the business community to discuss issues and concerns and foster regional cooperation on biodiversity conservation. With the team, ASEAN Heritage Parks, ASEAN's contribution to achieving the Biodiversity Plan AHP8 provides a timely opportunity for us to align the priorities of the ASEAN member states with the ASEAN Biodiversity Plan, or the ABP. By the way, interpreter, let me know if I'm speaking too fast. Okay. As the roadmap in achieving the 2030 biodiversity targets, the ABP is designed to support the implementation of the 𝘕𝘠𝘦𝘠 Global Biodiversity Framework, or what we call the 𝘕𝑚𝘠𝑔BF, through targeted regional interventions to complement the work of the ASEAN member states in carrying out their respective, your respective, our respective national biodiversity strategy and action plans, or NBSAPs. With its new role as one of the regional and sub-regional technical and scientific cooperation support center, or what we call TSCC for Asia, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity launches capacity building, capacity development initiatives, and the creation of various platforms for sharing knowledge, experiences, and best practices in addressing common challenges and emerging issues affecting the region's variety of species and ecosystems. The AHP8 conference offers a strategic opportunity for us to look closely and examine how far the region has achieved in meeting the goals of the 𝘕𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠, especially with the Convention on Biological Diversity's upcoming global review of our collective progress. I know most of you are busy preparing for this one. This upcoming midterm review will assess national reports of the CBD parties, evaluate progress towards each target, emphasize targets that need more attention, and help chart a trajectory for the work that still needs to be undertaken for the next 5 years. Through this conference, we will demonstrate ASEAN's direct contributions to the implementation of the 𝘕𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠. AHP8 will specifically underscore the critical role of ASEAN heritage parks, the bastion of our natural wealth, in advancing global and regional biodiversity targets. The agenda will also showcase key perspectives and ongoing initiatives on essential pillars such as nature-based solutions, as well as climate change adaptation and mitigation across the region and the world. These are not just buzzwords, these are our mandate and our responsibilities. Additionally, the conference will feature a wide range of topics covering ecosystems restoration, One Health, the meaningful engagement of youth, women, indigenous peoples, and local communities, the 30 by 30 biodiversity target, sustainable financing, and of course, one of the highlights of the event, the awarding ceremonies of the new 18 ASEAN Heritage Parks from 2022 to 2025. We will also have special activities and events such as the AHP Managers Meeting, the Project Steering Committee meeting of the ASEAN NMAPS project, the launch of the Forest Ecosystem Restoration Monitoring Framework, or FIRM, and the roundtable discussion on the road to CBD COP17, which is scheduled next year in Armenia. The insight from stories, experiences, and innovations from the discussions are expected to illuminate the mind, ignite the spirit, and compel deep engagement from every participant, driving meaningful actions to safeguard the future of our planet by applying whole-of-government and whole-of-society approaches, including multi-stakeholder and interdisciplinary engagements. We look forward to building strong partnership with experts and sectors outside our spheres. It is time to expand and cast our nets wider, to build momentum for coordinated action. As we align national and regional priorities with our global commitments to the 𝘕𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠, the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, our very own, the ASEAN Community Vision 2045, we ultimately affirm ASEAN's leadership in championing biodiversity conservation and climate resilience for inclusive, sustainable development that coexists in harmony with nature. Before I end, let me just share some important key points that I pick up from our two distinguished gentlemen from Vietnam. It's important that we maximize available technology, highlighting cross-border, trans-boundary cooperation, emphasize community-based action, innovative conservation financing that will propel our work to the future. Nature is not just resource, it's our asset, inspiration, prosperity, and we have to be determined to keep the balance in nature and to use our biodiversity to provide and give way to a more prosperous future for our ASEAN people. There is unity in diversity, in language, in our different ecosystems, and as one ASEAN, we can work towards all of these goals. And of course, I'm very happy that our host province mentioned the youth in particular. Again, our future leaders are here with us. Let us inspire them to continue our mission. We can come up with brilliant ideas, mobilize more support, mobilize more funding for our development and funding partners. And again, let me extend, let us all enjoy the beauty of Con Minh province, not just in the tour in this Friday, but there are many other food and non-food options that they offer to us. I have almost spent most of my money enjoying the food and shopping for some pasalubong. So if I don't have enough money, I will borrow money from others. So before I end, allow me to thank our partner, the Nature and Biodiversity Conservation Agency under the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment in Vietnam. Let's give them a round of applause, please. The provincial government of Quang Minh for the generous hosting of this event. Another round of applause, please. And of course, we extend our appreciation to our valued program partners who have provided logistic support, and of course, to the AHP8 working team led by the AHP Secretariat. They are all around us. Please, a round of applause for my very dedicated team at the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. And special mention, where is he? I cannot see him. Should be visible. Oh, over there. This side, please. You won't miss him. Mr. 𝘕𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀 and his team, our department directors, and all the staff who work day and night, giving blood, sweat, and tears to make sure this event is made possible with quality, and I hope you will enjoy all the things that we have offered to you. And of course, we look forward to tonight's special event. I heard that our Vietnam hosts will showcase some of their singing talents. I think to be led by our Vice Minister. Yeah, okay. So I encourage all participants to maximize this opportunity to engage in deep and meaningful conversation about conservation. Share your individual conservation stories. This would spark innovation, innovative solutions to boost collective efforts and strengthen collaboration across different sectors towards achieving our ambitious global biodiversity targets. The next 5 years will be crucial because they are the defining chapters of our planet. Our region and the rest of the world relies on our current efforts and decisions and decisive action. In unity, let us write our shared conservation story with purpose, humility, and urgency, because a healthy planet is the foundation of a healthy life. I wish us all a productive, engaging, and resounding successful AHP8 conference. Thank you very much, and congratulations for being part of this conference. And now, let's begin. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dr. 𝘠𝘱𝑚𝑒 Montemayor, for your meaningful messages, as well as your love for Quang Ninh province. Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite all of you to hear from Mr. 𝘕𝘠𝑛𝑦𝘠𝘠𝑛, Director for Sustainable Development, ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, ASEAN Secretariat. Please join me in welcoming him.
Good morning. Let me start with say a few words in Vietnamese first. Kính thưa anh Quốc trị, Thứ trưởng Bộ Nông nghiệp và Tài nguyên Môi trường Việt Nam, kính thưa Nguyễn Văn Công, Phó Chủ tịch Ủy ban Nhân dân tỉnh Quảng Ninh. Đây là một vinh dự lớn cho Ban Thư ký ASEAN được tham dự cái hội nghị lần này. Thế cũng có một surprise, một cái gọi là nhỏ là vì Ban Thư ký ASEAN có chuẩn bị một bài báo cáo và bài trình bày của anh Tổng Thư ký. Thì không biết là cái video đã được gửi cho ban tổ chức chưa? Thế nhưng mà đấy là một cái surprise nhỏ, là vì anh Tổng Thư ký lần này là không được không thu xếp tham dự được, cho nên là đã gửi một cái bài báo cáo. Thì có lẽ là tôi đề nghị là ban tổ chức play cái bài này. Xin cảm ơn.
His Excellency Dr. 𝘕𝘓𝘶, Vice Minister, Ministry of Agriculture and Environment of Vietnam, Mr. Nguyen Van Cung, Vice Chairman, the People's Committee of Quang Ninh Province, His Royal Highness Pangeran Muda Omar Ali Ibn Duli Pangeran Muda Muhammad Bulkiah, Curator of Natural History and Manager of TAF-GTEI Heritage Park, Dr. 𝘕𝘠𝘬𝘢𝘀, ACB Executive Director, distinguished representatives of the ASEAN Member States, the European Union and partners, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to join you virtually as we mark the 8th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference in Ha Long City, Quang Ninh Province. My appreciation goes to the Ministry of Agriculture and Environment of Vietnam for convening this gathering, and to ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, the European Union, the Federal Republic of Germany, 𝘍𝘬𝘓 Development Bank, Metro Pacific Investments Corporation, and IMA World Health for their collective efforts in bringing this conference to fruition. Before proceeding further, allow me to express my deep sympathy for the families and communities in the central regions of Vietnam affected by the severe storms and floods very recently. The loss of lives, livelihoods, and homes has been devastating, and we stand in solidarity with all those impacted and with the authorities and responders working tirelessly to support recovery efforts. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to congratulate Vietnam and Malaysia on the recent designation of their ASEAN Heritage Parks, endorsed at the 18th ASEAN Ministerial Meeting on the Environment and Langkawi on 3rd September 2025. These additions raised the total number of ASEAN Heritage Parks from 51 to 69 since the 7th conference in Indonesia in 2022. The ASEAN Heritage Parks program stands as a flagship initiative for biodiversity conservation in our region. It reflects our shared determination to protect and preserve the natural heritage that sustains us. The ASEAN Community Vision 2045, adopted at the 46th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, recognizes the fast-evolving global landscape and the need for effective, innovative responses. By advancing the AHP program, we strengthen our collective ability to confront major regional trends, climate change, environmental degradation, and biodiversity loss, while contributing to global commitments such as those under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN's forests rivers, lakes, peatlands, and seas underpin our economies, energy security, social well-being, and regional stability fundamental to the lives of almost 680 million people. As we reflect on the value of nature and the role of biodiversity in sustainable development, allow me to highlight several points. First, although ASEAN occupies just over 3% of the world's land area, it holds more than a quarter of the planet's known flora and fauna species. Forests are primary ecosystems, and major carbon pools are central to addressing the intensifying pressures of climate change and human activities. In 2020, forests cover more than 2 million square kilometers, or around 47% of our land area. Yet these ecosystems, including mangroves, face mounting pressures from economic expansions and rising demand for timber and non-timber forest products. Between 2000 and 2020, ASEAN lost roughly 8,000 square kilometers of forest each year, nearly 10 times the size of Singapore, placing our region among the world's deforestation hotspots. Second, following the recent COP30 in Brazil, the deep interconnection between biodiversity and climate change warrant renewed attention. Climate change is projected to become one of the most significant drivers of biodiversity loss by century's end. The ASEAN Biodiversity Plan, launched at the 16th UN Biodiversity Conference in 2024, outlines the region's contributions to the global framework and underscores the need to mainstream biodiversity considerations across sectors, including health, infrastructure, agriculture, fisheries, aquaculture, and forestry. Nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based adaptation are emerging as critical pathways toward achieving environmental and climate sustainability. The joint statement to COP30, adopted at the 47th ASEAN Summit, highlights approaches such as mangrove conservation, wetland restoration, climate-smart agriculture, and the integration of traditional, indigenous, and local knowledge for the protection of biodiversity while maximizing co-benefits for both communities and nature. Third, the ASEAN Joint Statement to the 16th UN Biodiversity Conference envisions a region strengthened by healthy terrestrial and marine ecosystem, supporting resilience and enabling a thriving blue, green, and biocircular economy. Achieving this vision requires cross-sectoral collaboration and full integration of biodiversity into development planning. ASEAN is well positioned to drive coordinated action among member states, supported by the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity and aligned with regional and global commitments, including the ASEAN Leaders' Declaration on One Health initiative, the ASEAN Blue Economy Framework, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the Convention on Biological Diversity. Finally, broad and meaningful engagement across all stakeholders is essential to address the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollutions. Our efforts must prioritize: first, mobilizing finance for nature and green investment. Second, ensuring inclusive approaches for local communities, indigenous peoples, and vulnerable groups. Third, strengthening collaboration with civil society, scientific networks, academia, think tanks, the private sectors, and industry to develop practical solutions. And fourth, enhancing youth participation by creating avenue for young people to contribute to the AHP program and its sites. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we are navigating an increasingly complex landscape. In such times, strong and consistent leadership in nature conservation, sustainable development, and climate action becomes indispensable. This conference offers an invaluable platform to share knowledge, exchange practical experience, and forge partnerships that strengthen protected area management through science-based and inclusive approaches and scale up nature-based solutions across ASEAN. In line with Malaysia's ASEAN Chairmanship theme this year, emphasizing inclusive and sustainable progress, and looking ahead to the Philippines Chairmanship theme for next year, navigating our future together, our shared direction is clear. Let this conference reaffirm our collective commitment to a future where biodiversity conservation, sustainable development, and climate resilience advance in unison, guided by cooperation, solidarity, and shared responsibility. I wish the 8th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference productive discussions and meaningful outcomes. I thank you.
Your Excellency, Vice Minister Dr. Ch, Ministry of Agriculture and Environment of Vietnam, Your Excellency, Mr. Kong, Vice Chair of the Province People's Committee of Quang Ninh, distinguished delegates from the ASEAN member states, colleagues from ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, esteemed heritage park managers, representatives of local governments, the academia, civil society, youth networks and development partners, 𝘕𝘮𝘰𝘨, good morning. It is an honor for the European Union to take part and join you in this 8th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference. At the outset, let me associate with the words of sympathy of Dr. 𝘐𝘗𝑚 Horn, Secretary General of the ASEAN, for the victims of the most recent horrendous natural disasters that have affected central Vietnam and the broader region, in fact. Allow me to express my sincere appreciation for the government of Vietnam, the ASEAN Secretariat, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity for convening this important gathering. The ASEAN Heritage Parks network has grown to 69 exceptional sites, each one a living testimony of Southeast Asia's irreplaceable biodiversity, a living foundation of biological, cultural diversity, community livelihoods, and climate resilience across the broader region. This year's Heritage Parks Conference theme could not be more timely. In fact, both the ASEAN Biodiversity Plan and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework call for ambitious and coordinated action to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030. The heritage parks are central to delivering these commitments. They safeguard key species and ecosystems, they protect vital water resources, they buffer communities from the impact of climate change, and they preserve cultural landscapes that define the region's identity. For the European Union, this shared ambition resonates strongly. The EU's own nature and biodiversity conservation policy, emphasizing protecting 30% of the land and sea, restoring degraded ecosystems, strengthening ecological resilience, and ensuring inclusive governance. These are the principles that guide our global partnerships and align deeply with the ASEAN direction. A central example of our commitment is the Natura 2000 network, the world's largest coordinated network of protected areas across Europe. The Natura 2000 network covers more than 18% of the landmass in EU member states and 10% of our seas. The name may sound a bit funny, Natura 2000. In fact, the network was established 50 years ago, and it was at that time a long-term vision for the year 2000. As it happens, the vision was not completely fulfilled, so we carry on, and we keep the name even though it is a bit old-fashioned. That name is also a reminder that the work is never completed, it continues, but also it brings together the distant past, the long-term future, and bringing all that into the present. One particular site of the Natura 2000 network is the oldest IUCN Category 1A protected area in the world, in Fontainebleau. It was established as a fully protected area 160 years ago. And this is where the IUCN was created 75 years ago. So why am I telling all that? I'm mentioning this to recognize all the park managers in the room and their teams as part of a long lineage of smart and committed managers. In every generation, it looks like an impossible challenge to protect the heritage, and yet they find creative solutions using the best tools available at the time to carry forward the heritage while attending to the needs of the communities and also advancing a long-term vision for the development of the territories. So, and also I recognize the youth that will take over as next generation in this sacred mission. Now, the Natura 2000 network may be a source of inspiration on how countries can team up and safeguard species, habitats, and landscapes across borders while supporting local communities, ecotourism, and sustainable development. Likewise, the ASEAN heritage parks share a similar vision, connecting transboundary ecosystems, protecting iconic species, and serving as anchors for community resilience and biodiversity conservation. Our presence here today reflects our shared belief that protected areas must not stand alone. They must be connected, well managed, and supported by sound science, policy, and finance. At the same time, across Europe, we continue to push the boundaries of knowledge on nature-based solutions through world-class investments in research and innovation, supporting green infrastructure, coastal resilience, river basin restoration, and regenerative landscapes. These advancements echo the priorities of the ASEAN Biodiversity Plan and the region's emerging nature-based solutions agenda. Similarly, the ASEAN has taken an important step through the ASEAN Nature-Based Solution Platform, of which the EU is a proud supporter through the Green Team Europe initiative and its technical assistance facility. And I recognize the colleagues in the room. The platform, with its catalogue of landscape strategies, offers powerful tools for decision makers, park managers, and communities across the region. Dear colleagues, let me join all of you in celebrating the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity 20th anniversary. It is an important milestone, and I'm honored that the European Union has been supporting the center for most of its existence to date. In collaboration with us, the center implemented the BICOM project, Biodiversity Conservation and Management of Protected Areas in the ASEAN region, aiming to enhance environmental, social, and economic well-being in Southeast Asia through biodiversity conservation and effective management of protected areas. Between 2017 and 2023, the BICAM project has intervened at sites, at national level and regional level. At site level, the project has worked to improve park management effectiveness. In this conference, you will hear about integrated management effectiveness tool developed by the European Commission Joint Research Center. This digital tool is building on the experience of managing protected areas across Europe and further customized to the specific circumstances of tropical environments. As you will see, this may be an option under consideration for further improvements in the management of protected areas in ASEAN member states. Let me say a word also on the small grants program funded by the European Union. Building on the achievements of the first two phases, we are working to establish a third phase with a total budget of 20 million euros, 15 million from the EU and 5 million in-kind support from the ACP. This third phase should strengthen biodiversity conservation and community resilience in and around the ASEAN heritage parks. In the broader context, the EU supports also the the Nature Solutions Finance Hub that aims to mobilize 1.5 billion euros in nature-positive investments by 2030. The Nature Solutions Finance Hub is implemented by the ASEAN Development Bank, and we expect it to create scalable projects and innovative financing instruments. Finally, we're also pleased to contribute to two key sessions of this conference this week. First, the session on restoration planning in heritage parks that took place yesterday. And I hear it was very lively, and I'm very pleased of that. It was meant to offer park managers a practical diagnostic tool to identify, prioritize, and plan ecosystem restoration interventions at the landscape scale. The 𝘍𝘢𝘴𝘪𝘵 methodology developed by IUCN and WRI is much more than a technical assessment. It is a participatory process that connects science, local knowledge, biodiversity objectives, climate adaptation, and community needs. It has proven effective across many landscapes in Asia and can be a powerful asset for ASEAN heritage park managers seeking to scale up restoration activities under the 𝘗𝘠𝑚𝑜𝑛-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Secondly, we support the session on nature-based solutions, project incubation and financing lab later today. This is a hands-on session to help park managers translate these concepts into concrete project proposals. The session aims to connect park managers with funding opportunities such as the ADB Nature Solutions Finance Hub I mentioned before, and to develop practical approaches based on existing good practices from ASEAN heritage parks. With this session, our goal is to equip park management with the necessary tools, knowledge, templates, and financing strategies to bring nature-based solutions projects to life. From our experience across Europe, we believe that successful projects are those that are properly rooted in local context, guided by science, and supported by inclusive governance. Your network embodies exactly this approach. In closing, let me reaffirm that the European Union remains fully committed to working with our partners and friends in the ASEAN region to advance ecological restoration and nature-positive developments. Together, we can strengthen the resilience of ASEAN heritage parks, support communities who depend on these landscapes, and ensure that biodiversity continues to thrive for the generations to come. I wish you all an inspiring and productive conference here in Ha Long, in the most inspiring place you could think of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. 𝘕𝑟𝑖𝑙𝘍𝘢𝘏𝘪𝘐𝑚. Dear distinguished guests, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity would like to present the special tokens of appreciation to all of our esteemed guests. So right now, I would love to invite on the stage Dr. 𝘠𝑦𝑛 Quốc-trị, Vice Minister, Ministry of Agriculture and Environment. Mr. Nguyễn Văn Công, Vice Chairman, Provincial People's Committee of Quảng Ninh Province. Mr. 𝘠𝑳𝑧, Director for Sustainable Development, ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, ASEAN Secretariat, and Mr. 𝘕𝑟𝑖l𝘍𝘢𝘐𝑚, First Secretary, Delegation of the European Union to Vietnam. May I kindly invite you to come on stage and receive the tokens of appreciation from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, and please invite Dr. Jerome Montemeo to deliver the special gifts. Thank you very much. Thank you once again for the meaningful and inspiring remarks delivered during the opening plenary session. These messages not only set a clear and impactful direction at the start of the AHP8 conference, but also reaffirm the strong commitment of our region and unrelenting support of our conservation partners to the protection of ASEAN heritage parks and preservation of our biodiversity. Once again, thank you very much. Once again, please give a big round of applause. Thank you very much, our delegates. Once again, thank you, our delegates. Please be seated for the next photo session. All right, dear distinguished guests, right now is a photo opportunity for all of our participants. I would like to invite our photographers on the stage for a group photo from right here, down there. A group photo of our delegates with all of our participants. Please invite. Please kindly be seated, our delegates. All right, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please remain seated for a group photo with our delegates. Please pay attention to the stage. I would like to invite all of the delegates as well as all of the participants to stand up, please, for a better group photo. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please smile to the camera. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Please put your hands together. Clasp your hands. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presence. Thank you. Thank you, media team. Dear distinguished guests and delegates, to enhance the interaction and provide an opportunity to explore the region's rich biodiversity values, we are very pleased to take you to the tour of the AHP8 Marketplace and Exhibition, a vibrant showcase of biodiversity-based products, educational materials, and arts and crafts made by the stakeholders and communities of ASEAN Heritage Parks at the 8th AHP8 Conference, here in the beautiful province of Quảng Ninh, Vietnam. So right now, may I respectfully invite His Excellency 𝘕𝑛𝑔𝑢𝑛H, Mr. Nguyễn Văn Công, Mr. 𝘕𝘄𝑚𝑎𝑙-Montemeyer, Mr. Nguyễn Kỳ Anh, Mr. Cyril Loisel, leaders of the Department of Nature, Conservation and Biodiversity, leaders of the Department of Agriculture and Environment of Quảng Ninh Province, as well as the heads of delegation of ASEAN member states to join us in this tour. Please welcome. The keynote presentation, please welcome.
It is such a great honor and privilege to be here in this 8th ASEAN Heritage Park Conference. Thank you so much for inviting me and for this honor and opportunity. Today I'm going to talk about the GBF targets and its challenges as well as opportunities through the lens of 𝘕𝘂𝑠 assessment. The 𝘕𝘂𝑠 is the Intergovernmental Panel for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Service, as similar to IPCC for climate change. Basically, I'll be talking about the findings of the 𝘕𝘂𝑠, which is relevant to this region, particularly to achieve the GBF goal in next 5 years. May I ask, can any one of you know this art or this person? No? Can you guess? Well, he started his incredible journey almost 170 years ago to the region which we call ASEAN. And this person is a very well-known naturalist and scientist. We know his name by Alfred Russel Wallace. So he traveled between 1854 to 1862. Over the 8 years period, he traveled almost more than 14,000 miles across the Malayan archipelago. Now the region is called the Indonesia, Malaysia and Brunei, collecting more than 126,000 specimens. Of course, many of them are new to science at that period. And with his meticulous observation and discovery, the Russel Wallace, independently conceived the idea of natural selection. The theory of evolution, one of the most groundbreaking theory in the history of science, jointly conceived in parallel with Charles Darwin. So, like Charles Darwin, in what he saw in Galapagos Island, the incredible biodiversity of the Galapagos Island during his voyage, this gentleman, Alfred Russel Wallace, he was also inspired, his theory was also inspired by the incredible richness of biodiversity in this ASEAN region. So this region, as we know, it is now considered as one of the biological hotspots in the world. Although it occupies only 3% land areas, this region hosts more than 25% of the world species. So this hosts the most diverse and endemic rich coral reefs in the world, and it exhibits disproportionately high number of endemic species compared to any other biomes in the world. And it harbors almost globally significant marine biodiversity, including critical habitats for marine mammals and sea turtle species. And this region also contains significant portion of the tropical biodiversity in the world, contributing to the rich terrestrial biodiversity. However, this region, based on the 3 findings of the IPBES recent assessment, in which I was fortunate to be part of it, and 3 assessments, namely the regional assessment on biodiversity and ecosystem services for Asia Pacific, sustainable use of wild species, and also the invasive alien species. According to this report, this area, particularly the ASEAN region, faces incredible pressure due to the incredible pressure on biodiversity due to various drivers. Particularly, the Asia Pacific assessment shows that almost 30% decline in biocultural diversity in this region after 1950. And this region has lost more than 74% of its original peat swamp forest. And according to the Asia Pacific assessment, there is the huge pressure on marine ecosystem, particularly due to the illegal and destructive fishing practices, river damming, climate change, induced warming, and also acidification, coastal pollution are the major threats for that. And also now we know, according to this invasive alien species of IPBES, the annual economic loss attributed to this region is almost 33.5 billion per year. And this region, based on the highlights from the sustainable use of wildlife assessment, this region has a widespread and massive commercial and often illegal trade of the ornamental species in the world. And from 1998 to 2007, this region exported more than 35 million CITES listed animals. And all the drivers of the biodiversity loss in this region, it outlined by these 3 assessments, are socio-economic and demographic changes, rapid urbanizations, development, and infrastructure development, and also the wildlife trade, pollutions, and invasive alien species. Like this 3 regional assessment, the global assessment of IPBES came in 2019, that also paint the very grim picture of the status and trend of the planet biodiversity. And fortunately, I was a part of this report, and this report that produced by more than 500 experts representing 51 countries of the world, that has almost more than 2,000 page report. Although it's a very long report, I draw 3 key messages from this report to you. The first message is the human activities are driving the global ecosystem decline. So decline in particularly terrestrial, freshwater, and marine ecosystem. So nearly 47% of natural ecosystem has declined in extent and conditions. And approximately 25% of the excess species are already threatened with extinction. And the global biomass of wild mammals has dropped by 82%. Another message that IPBES first global assessment has about the importance of biodiversity. As it highlights the nature that underpins the quality of life by providing basic life support functions for our life such as water regulation, air purification, and climate stabilization. It also supports material goods such as food, energy, and raw material for industrial production. Beyond these tangible goods and service, biodiversity or nature also offer non-material contributions such as cultural identity, spiritual inspiration, and psychological well-being. The third message that 𝘕𝘂's assessment has is about the progress despite the importance of the nature and despite the rapid and ongoing loss of biodiversity. Our response to halt the biodiversity loss, to address the different drivers of biodiversity loss is very limited. According to the report, the progress towards the 2020 Aichi biodiversity target has been very limited and very uneven. And the report also highlights that to achieve the goal, biodiversity goal for 2030 and beyond, that requires a transformative change across economic, social, political, and technology sectors. So this report, the global report on biodiversity and ecosystem produced by 𝘕𝘂 set a solid scientific foundation to set a new biodiversity target, which we call the �𝘚𝑚𝑖𝑛𝑔-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, also called GBF or KMGBF. So this framework has four major goals for long term, that is for 2050, and 23 targets for 2030. Particularly for the goal 1 is about the protection and restoration of nature. It has 8 targets that aims to reduce threats to biodiversity through conservation, maintenance of genetic diversity, and addressing the direct drivers of biodiversity loss. Another goal is about prospering with nature together, in living harmony with nature, focusing on both the positive interactions between people and nature. And the third one is sharing the benefits that we derive from nature, and it provides the mandate for the fair and equitable sharing of benefits. And the last goal is about investment and collaboration, and there are 10 targets which provides the tool and also the solutions to achieve the other target. So to highlight, to compare this GBF, the current GBF, compared with Aichi biodiversity target or other targets, it's kind of transformative, and it provides some opportunities. Particularly, it calls for robust monitoring and accountability system that requires countries to report progress using standardized quantitative indicators through a formal monitoring framework. Second, it introduced the outcome-oriented targets, which prioritize the effectiveness of protected areas. Not only reporting, how much area is covered by the protected areas or OECM, it also talks about the effectiveness, how effective those protected areas to achieve the ecological or biodiversity goal. The third one is it promotes integrated cross-sectoral tools that helps operationalizing and mainstreaming biodiversity across all sectors. And the KMGBF also encourages the parties of the CBD to use the emerging technologies like satellite data, remote sensing to track and also to monitor the progress using essential biodiversity variable to track the ecosystem health and trends. Last but most importantly, it is inclusive in terms of biodiversity governance, recognizing the role of indigenous and people and local communities, recognizing the role of indigenous knowledge as a key conservation actors, and established the GBF fund, and also explicitly aligns the SDGs and other multilateral environment agreement to blend the effort to enhance financing. However, there are several challenges, as we have already in the midterm of this GBF, and there are now several literatures that outline the challenge of this GBF, and some of them are as follows. For example, there is a huge gap, despite it encouraged to use the quantitative data and indicator to track the progress. There is a huge gap, particularly in monitoring and the data. For example, it only covers 90% of the mandatory indicators. And also, there is a data gaps, although it includes IPLCs and gender and different demographic like youth. There is a gap exists in the cross-cutting issues. And although we have this set of this 30-30 target, but translating that global target to the national level by establishing the new protected areas, most of the countries that conflict with the country goal of food security, economic growth, and infrastructure development. And there is the one studies that shows that less than 25% of the global protected areas have only the adequate financial and human capacity to achieve the objectives. And there is also the huge gap, particularly in the developing countries, which host the major biodiversity in the world, particularly harnessing the satellite remote sensing data and using it and to monitor the biodiversity target, and not only related to ecology, but also the genetics and the other indexes, which is kind of complex, like rate indexes. And although it says, the mobilizing 200 billion per year by 2030, there is a huge gap in current spending on biodiversity. And there is also the gap, particularly, although it recognized the importance of ILK, indigenous local knowledge, and recognize the role of IPLC, but it is not well defined the rights and roles of indigenous people and local communities, particularly biodiversity governance. Although we have the significant challenge, but when we track the progress, although we don't have official data of all the progress indicators, because the countries are preparing their NBSAP now, but there are some studies which shows there are some positive trend and positive change going on. Particularly, now we have almost 18% of the land area covered by protected areas, although we are very limited to achieve the target in a marine ecosystem, but in terrestrial, in the progress is also encouraging. And particularly in the ASEAN region, you have increased the number of this heritage park from 51 to 69 total, and the number keeps increasing, which is also very encouraging sign. And the invasive species, which is the target 6 of this GBF, and that invasive species is now recognized as the top 5 direct drivers of biodiversity loss, is outlined by the invasive alien species of 𝘕𝘂𝑠, which came in 2023. So it documents not only the negative impact in a very synthetic manner, but also highlight the success stories, how those invasive species can be eradicated, controlled, and contained. So in your region, you have also focused on the inter-island biosecurity and aquaculture, which is also very positive signs. And there is the target 18, which is about subsidies. Although, there are several positive stories, but I'm just speaking because of the time limitations, like few. And we know now that the harmful subsidies that has negative effect on nature, that has negative effect on environment, like pollution and biodiversity loss. Now we know the number, how harmful that is. And, the world government now combinedly provides harmful subsidies of $2.6 trillion. And now countries are focusing, reducing, or making that subsidies more positive to nature. And one of the examples from your region is now focusing on sustainable agriculture, climate-smart agriculture, and the incentives to fisheries more sustainable. And now, as we have listened in this morning, that you have been working on NVSAP, and also you have a very good framework for the entire region. You have the ASEAN Biodiversity Plan, which is aligned closely with the GBF, Global Biodiversity Framework. So, and apart from that, I was fortunate to part of this 𝘊𝘶𝘴𝘪𝘵𝘺 that ASEAN Center for Biodiversity is conceiving, and that is also very inclusive, and they are trying to plan, make it inclusive, and also aligning that with the global framework that is adopted by IPBES. So these are the positive signs. And while I was here and talking with the scientists, practitioners of ASEAN region, I felt the optimism, the hope. And this morning, I also hear from the politicians the shared commitment and also the shared actions. I believe, those provides the hope that this global framework or the targets are within the reach in our time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. 𝘈𝘚𝘠𝘚𝘠𝘚. Dear distinguished guests, our next speaker is the Executive Secretary of the GBIF, an international network and research infrastructure that provides open access to biodiversity data, which greatly contributes to our conservation work in the ASEAN region. Please join me as I welcome Dr. Joseph Thomas Miller.
I am the Executive Secretary of GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. We are an intergovernmental organization that has been around for 25 years. Our headquarters is in Copenhagen, Denmark, but we're really a global network, and that's what I would like to tell you about today. And very delighted to be invited to this event by our close partner, ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, which has been a member organization of GBIF for over a decade, close to 15 years, I believe. And it also is very good to follow the previous speaker, Dr. Shretha, because what I'm going to be speaking is about data. I have a wonderful job, and what I like about our job is that we have a very narrow focus. We are about biodiversity data. Our role is to help nations through their institutions mobilize and share and use biodiversity data for science and policy. That is our mission. And our role is not to develop indicators and report on country expectations. Our role is to get the best data to you so that you can answer those questions for your own planning. And I do that as a executive secretary of the organization and reporting to a governing board made up of members of 69 countries and their ministries of environment. So to start off, GBIF is two things. GBIF, the strength of GBIF is our network, and it's a lot of fun to come to an organization meeting like this, and you see a very strong network here in Asia, an ASEAN network, and that's what GBIF is as well, but at a global level. We have regional meetings, we have our global meetings, but what we really try to do is bring together regional and national people that have the same love and want to protect biodiversity, bring them together so that we can work together to protect our heritage. And we do that. This is a picture from our governing board meeting a couple years ago in Australia through annual meetings and lots of online events. But we also are a data infrastructure. We are a very high throughput data infrastructure, which I'll show in a couple of slides. State-of-the-art data infrastructure and data handling capacity. The flow of data through GBIF coming from heritage parks like yours, shared at a national level and maintained there, but then also shared globally. This is really the strength, and one of the missions of GBIF is to help provide free and open infrastructure for countries to manage the biodiversity data. Developing infrastructure takes a long time, it's expensive, and things change, and you need to keep up on the latest developments. One of the reasons GBIF was put together was so that we can use sustainable shared infrastructure, and that's what we can provide for nations that wish to work with us. So we have a wonderful global network of data providers. We have 149 countries and regions that share data through GBIF, almost the entire globe, and almost every ASEAN country shares some data with GBIF through either the data providers, which are institutions, and through the few national nodes we have within the ASEAN region. But this network has been growing, and we hope to fill out all those blank spots in the map. But this is just, I wanted to emphasize that we are a global network, and there are data points coming in from all over the world, including Asia, of people who, like you, want to share data and have access to free and open data as well. So this is our kind of statistics dashboard, which I'm quite proud of. We have currently in our database 3.5 billion data points. And the essential data point we have is the evidence of a particular species at a particular time and place. I know India is not part of ASEAN, but I always like to give the example of tigers because I'm a big fan of tigers. There's a tiger that was spotted in a national park at a certain time. That's the type of data we have. It can be very simple or it can be more complicated. But that evidence is what you need to manage biodiversity in part, as well as other types of data. So we have 3.5 billion species of records. Every second, we get 10 new records. Every second, 15,000 are downloaded. So as I'm talking here, there's just a huge amount of data that's being sent around the world, and now with the age of AI, this is even expanding even more rapidly. We have data publishing institutions, over nearly 2,600 data publishing institutions. We have 69 countries which are members of our board, which steer the work program and fund the work program for GBIF, and that is growing as well. We recently had Ethiopia, Ukraine, Mongolia, Dominican Republic join GBIF, and Italy. And we have this state-of-the-art data tracking system in which we understand who is downloading the data from GBIF and how they are using it in scientific peer-reviewed publications. And this is very important. Our previous speaker talked about the 𝘕𝘂𝑝s report on invasive alien species. I can tell you exactly which data sets were downloaded and used in that report. It's a very strong value proposition for people who want to share data, because people who share data want to be able to say that their work is having an impact. And by sharing data with GBIF, I can guarantee you your data was used in that invasive species report of 𝘕𝘂𝑝s. So sharing data is very valuable for the policy framework. And GBIF data is growing as well. So this is a map of data intensity. So the brighter colors in orangish red are where the data is coming from. And also people have described this map as a map of wealth. And it also correlates highly with wealth. Wealthier nations do tend to have more money to spend on biodiversity, and this won't be a surprise to anyone. However, I just want to mention that over the past decade, the data growth in GBIF has been exceptional as well, and that growth is all over the world. So this is 2014, the level of data, and then on to 2017, much more data, and now in 2024, a great expansion of the data, especially in the marine environments, and great data growth in Asia as well. So the data flows to GBIF are extraordinary. We have, since I joined in 6 years ago, we have more than doubled the data in GBIF from about 1.2 million now to 3.5 billion occurrences. And that data will grow very rapidly with new types of data that we'll be bringing in, such as data from camera traps, like I mentioned the tigers, but also from environmental DNA, new sources of DNA to fill those data gaps that we heard about from the previous speaker. So this is a diagram that describes kind of our operations and value proposition. And I'll step you through the 3 stages of this. The left side being where the data comes from, who shares data with us, with this global network through the national nodes. The middle part is our infrastructure and how that data is managed and shared back to the global community as open source data. And the third stage is how that data is used through science and policy, including, as you saw, 𝘕𝑚 on that slide. So let's zoom in a little bit on the left-hand side here. So GBIF was started 25 years ago, really out of the natural history collections community. So we have expanded much beyond that to large data flows from not only museums, government ministries, but different types of data as well, such as museum specimens. Citizen science records are the largest number of data pieces of evidence in GBIF currently right now. And these come through not only government sources, but also through initiatives in the private sector as well. We also have 120 private sector businesses that share data with GBIF, and this aligns with the data growth expected from GBIF Target 15, which we heard a little bit about. And of course, the 2 things I wanted to mention is that we are putting a broad emphasis on 2 new types of data, one being environmental DNA. The evidence of the health of our soils and water is really a good way to monitor biodiversity change. As we heard from the previous speaker, the 𝘚𝘮𝘦𝘠𝘠 Global Biodiversity Framework is really focusing on measuring and monitoring. And with environmental DNA is a way to do that without invasive collecting, but also gives a really good opportunity to sample multiple times to look at change over time and see the impact of management decisions impacting your national parks. And the other thing I want to mention is survey and monitoring. So we have developed a program to improve our data model so that the rich information on biological surveys can be better shared with GBIF. And again, to align with the 𝘚𝘮𝘠𝘠 Global Biodiversity Framework. So the data is not just a single species at a time and place, but what other species were at that time? Was that species there the next year? Was the abundance of that species changing over time? This is the rich data we need for the Global Biodiversity Framework, and we are developing a data model to manage this type of data. So this is a model of our infrastructure in Copenhagen. We have a data lake that stores this data and makes it and combines it. And actually, I should go backwards because I should not emphasize the open licenses and data standards. All this data is different. It comes from different sources, but because we use a data standard, we can combine it together so that someone can access data from literally thousands of different data sets with a single query. That's really the power of GBIF. And that's done through data standards, which is very difficult to do alone, but working as a global community, we can do that. So we have the gbif.org portal. We also have most of the data that's downloaded from GBIF is through the APIs, through even graduate students are downloading and using data for analyses using computer programs such as R and Python. And also through hosted portals, especially proud of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity dashboard, which includes a part of that is the species occurrence records from GBIF. You can get a distribution map on that. But right now I'd like to emphasize the science and policy part of the equation. So every day there are 6 peer-reviewed scientific publications published that use data from GBIF. And we know this because we track this data. And we know that this data is used, for example, these publications are used in the IPBES report to inform the frameworks such as the CBD and IPBES. The Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity has been very encouraging with us, and we are, GBIF data is a strong source, as I'll mention later and more tomorrow morning, on in many of the different indicators. But the topics that people use GBIF data for in their analyses range from ecology and evolution, climate, human health, invasive species, conservation, food security, and endangered species. The most common use of a GBIF dataset download is to do a species distribution model of a species. For example, let's take a data model of a climate change scenario 20 years from now. Where will the species be in 20 years? This kind of prediction models is how people use GBIF data. But GBIF is not only about the data. We are a global network, and we spend a lot of time, and very important to our board of directors, to the training element, the capacity enhancement. We have a very thorough training curriculum all the way from individuals, national, regional, and global training sessions, both online that are completely open to use and from our portal. But this integrated system of training allows really hands-on people to take the data, for example, from a heritage park, formatted into that standardized format so that it can be shared more easily at a national level, but then if the nation agrees and wishes to be shared globally as well. Very important programs we have for capacity enhancement. And we started actually during the pandemic to expand our reach, and now we have regional support team members in Asia, Latin America, Africa, and Europe and Central Asia. We currently have 3 members from Taipei, Kathmandu, and in India who are help desk supports for this region. So if you have data questions about sharing data with GBIF or data use, they are available for consultation. And this is an area we certainly would like to expand in the future. They do a lot of outreach and training as well. This is a picture of Lily Shreth from ISIMAD, and a regional support team member from Nepal, and teaching a course a few months ago in Mongolia. Mongolia is a new GBIF participant country, and we had a workshop there, and here she is teaching some young scientists the specifics of sharing data with GBIF. We also had similar events, outreach in Timor-Leste, which is also a node in GBIF, and some other events about infrastructure. So this is kind of a sampling of some of the activities of our regional support teams. And one thing I did mention earlier is quite proud of the collaboration with ACB for the dashboard. And the dashboard is GBIF data that you could find from the portal, but what we use our infrastructure to be able to, and the APIs, to just subset the data to the ASEAN countries, and that makes it much cleaner and easier for countries to use. So I invite you to look at this. There's much more data in this dashboard than from GBIF, but this is a starting point for that. And these are the types of offerings we can support for GBIF national members, and would love to be able to expand this to countries all over in Asia. We have, for example, countries like Colombia, South Africa, Switzerland, United States. They all use GBIF portals as their national biodiversity infrastructure. I'm American. The U.S. was spending a couple $100,000 a year supporting their biodiversity infrastructure, and they saw what we were doing and said, well, we don't have to spend that $200,000. We can spend that on other things to mobilize data instead of supporting the infrastructure. So it's a balancing act there, because we do need support for initiatives locally as well. So does being a member of GBIF help? I like to think so, and here's a bit of evidence. It's a correlation, not necessarily a causation. But upper left-hand corner is South Africa, which has been a member of GBIF since the beginning, and Brazil in the upper right, which has been a member for 15 years or so. They have a lot more data shared globally than India and China, which are not members of GBIF. Of course, India and China have, and other countries have local internal data that they can access and use. But as far as open shared data with a global network, having this source infrastructure to work with has really allowed South Africa and Brazil to use the data they have in their country and also data that comes in from other places. For example, I did a quick study of the ASEAN countries. We have evidence in GBIF of I don't know the number off the top of my head, about 100,000 museum specimens that are shared from ASEAN countries to GBIF, but we also have 55 times that much number of data from European and North American museums about biodiversity in ASEAN countries that is openly available through GBIF, so basically repatriated through GBIF. This goes back to Wallace. Ever since Wallace, Europeans and North Americans have been collecting data, taking it back to their home institutions, and this is a mechanism in which the data from that is delivered back. And hopefully we are developing collaborations as well. Quickly, we just heard about the biodiversity framework. GBIF is well aligned with the 23 targets. Really, the core for us is our targets 20 and 21, and I'll speak a little bit more about this tomorrow, which is the data capacity enhancement for biodiversity, which I spoke to earlier, and also the infrastructure and the growth of the GBIF data, which is a complementary indicator for target 21. Always get those two turned around. So GBIF data itself is a metric that can be reported on and we do automatic country reports for every country, whether you remember or not. You can go to gbif.org and you can see how many occurrences, how many species, and see that species growth, and you can use those in your NBSAP reports. And there are many countries that currently do cite GBIF data in their NBSAPs. One other way that GBIF-mediated data is used, a really good example is the IUCN Red List. The assessors for this Red List, they go to GBIF, they look at the distribution of the occurrences in GBIF as part of their assessment. And as I mentioned, the CBD Executive Secretary is very supportive of GBIF and recently wrote a memo to all parties encouraging all countries that are part of the Convention on Biological Diversity to join GBIF as well. And this has been very influential in helping to grow our network. And also kind of a message from Uruguay, which is a member of GBIF. I think this is quite powerful. They reported at our governing board meeting last month that last year they used the NBSAP mechanism to show that GBIF and having a node in Uruguay was necessary and very helpful to report on the indicators for Uruguay, and they encourage other countries to do this as well. So to conclude here, what I've kind of described is the data part of GBIF, and I have also mentioned the policy frameworks around the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Sustainable Development Goals. But of course, we need money to do this. We need money to mobilize data, to run our national parks, to do the monitoring. We need money to do analyses, to report for the CBD and biodiversity. But there are mechanisms for that, such as the Global Environment Facility, which is purposely built for this type of work. And in what I have been doing at the Secretariat and through our outreach is really, we want to bring these three groups together. For example, there are opportunities around Jeff Star allocations for countries to finance the development of a GBIF node or a biodiversity information facility. Timor-Leste has had a grant to do this and is aligned with GBIF through that. And there are also larger opportunities to the GBFF as well. So we're really encouraging is, whenever I meet somebody, I always ask, do you know the CBD focal point in your country? Because I want there to be a GBIF node, a CBD focal point, and a Jeff focal point really working together to align the data, the policy, and the financial framework so that we can really have a strong report on the GBFF. So I'll leave it at that and encourage, I'll be around all week and I would love to speak with you about GBIF in your country and how we can work together to mobilize data at your national level, primarily and first and foremost to be used at the national level, and to have a national node in your country so that you can manage that data and share what you wish with the global system that we have built at GBIF. For example, there might be endangered species that you do not want to share that data for, and that is fine. And having a national node is a mechanism to control that data so that you can have the data and use it for your best, but also protect it as well. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph Thomas Mueller. Dear distinguished guests, the next speaker I would like to invite on the stage, Ms. Siti Zulekha Abdul Wahab. Please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today, and my presentation will focus on opportunities and challenges for ASEAN towards 2030, which is basically sharing the outcome of the side event that we had yesterday on a road to CBD COP17. Oh, I can connect this. Thank you so much. Yeah. My presentation will cover the key highlights of the opening of the session and the highlights on ASEAN member states' reflection on the implementation of NBSAP and the preparation towards the submission of 7th National Report, a recap on the discussion surrounding ACB role in supporting ASEAN member states, and highlights on the preparation of ASEAN joint statement to CBD COP17. Ladies and gentlemen, in the opening of the session, the speakers share on the key preparation that is currently being carried out by ACB towards CBD COP17, which include the establishment of ASEAN Pavilion, meant to showcase AMS contributions to the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, along with the ASEAN Vision 2045, and the expectation, or hopes rather, for COP outcomes to align with ASEAN's visions and priorities. And also, accelerating the implementation of NBSAP across all AMS, and mapping out the preparation and submission of a 7NR, alongside the implementation of ASEAN Biodiversity Plan. And we also spoke on consolidating national and regional positions for ASEAN joint statement in preparation for COP17, which will be held in Yerevan, Armenia in October of next year. And we also discuss or highlight that the objective of the side event that we had yesterday was necessarily to generate ideas and recommendations that will support and show the regional support or the regional works towards CBD COP17. Well, the idea that Malaysia has to organize the session, co-organized by ACB and also ASEAN Secretariat, the idea was to take advantage of the 8th AHP conference here in this beautiful Halong Bay, Vietnam, to take advantage of having our friends, all of our AMS representatives and delegates over to discuss on our preparation towards COP. And we feel that this event unofficially kickstart Malaysia's works and responsibilities as the new AWG NCB chairman. Moving on with the highlights of the session on AMS reflection. Across the region, All AMS are in different stages of NBSAP updating. Some of the AMS have already updated their NBSAP way earlier after the adoption of KMGBF, while some are reviewing and updating their NBSAP currently and will be submitting their NBSAP before COP17. As you can see, but I will just explain comprehensively. And there are countries who just recently submitted their NBSAP, and now they are focusing on implementation and implementation framework. And there are members, AMS, who are still working on a review and updating of their NBSAP to align with KMGBF. On NBSAP implementation, the stages of implementation varies across the region. As you can see, some AMS are working on establishing or have established governance structure or implementation framework for NBSAP implementation. This includes developing a funding framework to establish sustainable funding for the implementation of the policy, and development of indicators including Biodiversity Management Index in the case of Indonesia. And implementation is also carried out through global funding. And in terms of implementation, some countries have already worked on mainstreaming their NBSAP into National Development Framework or National Development Plan, especially in mainstreaming through economic sector, major economic sector, which across ASEAN region, it's pretty much about the same: palm oil, agriculture, fishery. And developing implementation framework through coordinating body at the national level. And we have also discussed how for some AMS, implementation might be slightly easier compared to others due to the structural government. As we understand, implementation needs to be mainstream from the federal government to the subnational government, which in this case, for AMS who has a flat structure or single tier structure, it might prove to be easier. And we also discussed on a focus group of the implementation, which the focus group that was raised were OECMs, restoration and conservation, spatial planning, and there were also discussions on access and benefit sharing, as well as invasive alien species. Discussion on preparation of 7NR highlighted the staggered phases that AMS are going through right now. There are AMS that are already advanced from others with having finalized their final data and in the process of submitting through the online reporting tool, while some are still in data collection phase, which involves multiple stakeholder engagement. As we can tell, Dr. Miller touches on data and monitoring, data for monitoring, and we all understand the complexity, the vast nature of the biodiversity data, let alone implementation of NBSAP that encompasses wide areas, a lot of stakeholders, and covers wide areas nationally. However, we are hopeful that we are able to meet the deadline of February 2026 through the submission to CBD via the online monitoring tools. On gaps and challenges, although we are carrying out our implementation of NBSAPs based on national priorities, national capacities and capabilities and circumstances. However, when we discuss on gaps and challenges, we do share common challenges across the region and among the AMS. Those challenges that were highlighted includes constraint in capacity. There are AMS who build who develop their NBSEP in-house. So that does take a lot of, does require a lot of human resource capacity as well as funding, and requires extensive stakeholder coordination. And there are also challenges in establishing biodiversity financing or biodiversity accounting. And of course, I think the most popular challenge across the region is financing. Also, interestingly, a few AMS raised that a change in political structure or ministerial structure due to political decision does have impact in our works in the implementation of NBSEP. And this is something that is real, as Malaysia has also experienced the same effect when it comes to change in political structure. So that is an interesting finding that we discussed yesterday. And what are the support that is required by the AMS? You can see the support were already mentioned, or it's very much in line with what Dr. Shrestha mentioned in his slide. We can see common elements or key points across the presentation. And I would like to bring you to the support that AMS views could be supported by ACB. So I'll present them together in the interest of time. What is the expectation of AMS of ACB's role as a TSCC center? Some of the key points that were discussed were support in capacity building and knowledge exchange, including on NBSEP implementation, management of protected areas and heritage parks, and also on indigenous conservation. One of the advantages of having a rather diverse level of implementation is that each AMS could provide sharing of experience, lesson learned, sharing the mistakes that we did during the earlier part of our implementation for our friends who are in the initial state, so they can avoid these mistakes. I feel this is because mistakes in biodiversity planning and implementation is very costly. So this is an area that can be a core focus on information exchange or expertise exchange throughout the region. And also support is needed in protecting landscape, habitat restoration, management of wildlife and reforestation programs, as well as biodiversity and climate change. As we know, that one of the COP decision on COP16 in Cali, Colombia is on the interlinkages of biodiversity and climate change. I think this is also finding from IPBES as well. So we see that we could use a lot of technical and scientific expertise support in mainstreaming biodiversity and climate change interlinkages. And also developing standard on nature-based solution and expanding access and benefit sharing projects, as well as coordinating resource mobilization and development of monitoring and reporting tools. One of the challenges that was also mentioned repetitiously throughout the discussion is on data management and development of CHM, which, referring to Dr. Miller's presentation, it is an area of support that the MAS is looking for. And also, for support to showcase regional priorities and contributions in the global front, and also preparation of key deliverables for COP17. And finally, for the last session, the last part of the session is AMS delegation and representative discussed on way forward on developing our ASEAN joint statement to CBD COP17. and we would like for ASEAN voice to be represented strong and loud during the session. And we discussed on recommendation of focus areas. There were recommendation on touching on global progress review, resource mobilization and financial mechanism, as well as to review our past joint statement for matters that are still relevant for COP17. Moving forward, we have summarized during the session that AMS shares common challenges despite the varied stages of NBCEP development and implementation, and support is required through strong regional partnership in addressing gaps and challenges, not just between AMS ourselves, but also with our partners. Thank you so much to ASEAN Secretariat, to ACB, and to EU for supporting the works done regionally. And we have come to agreement to keep working on the roadmap for the development of ASEAN joint statement. So that is all from me. Thank you very much. I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to the representatives of all ASEAN member states for your participation, for your sharing and contribution, and we hope this partnership continues way after AHP8 and to keep supporting Malaysia's role as the next AWG-NCB chairman. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Siti Zulaikha Abdul Wahab. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call on Mr. Sabto Aji Prabowo, Director of Area Conservation, Directorate General of Natural Resources and Ecosystem Conservation, Ministry of Forestry of the Republic of Indonesia, to give us a reflection of the 7th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference that took place in Indonesia in 2022. Please welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to share about the AHP conference reflection in 2022, reflecting on past AHP conference. Can you share the presentation? Just wait a minute. Okay, I'll start the presentation while we waiting for the PPT. 7th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference held in Bogor, Indonesia, from 31 October until 3 November 2022. It's raising theme, healing nature and people, the role of AHPs in ecosystem protection and pandemic recovery. As we know that 7th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference held in the end of the pandemic of COVID-19. More than 300 participants attended the 4-day conference, and This conference highlighted the issues and action on the ecosystem restoration and the role of the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration and the ICRF and the good practices in sustainable financing, strengthening stakeholders' participation and resilience. The AHP8, the ASEAN Heritage Parks held managers meeting, featured accomplishment of its AHP managers on the management of their respective AHPs fish office, the goals and strategies in the AHP Regional Action Plan. The 7th AHP conference held parallel breakout sessions. The session 1 is protected areas, human health, and preventing future pandemics. And the session 2 is sustainable financing for AHPs. Session 3 about the evaluating effectiveness of protected areas. And session 4 about the women, youth, and indigenous people and local communities in protected area management. The session 5 is ecotourism, business, and biodiversity. And the last session is the ASEAN Heritage Park as model for nature-based solution in the region. This conference opened by the Vice Minister of Environment and Forestry of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. 𝘕𝘚𝘀𝘆. And then this conference also held ASEAN Biodiversity Heroes Award ceremony, awarding ceremony of the new AHPs, and also held Young Asian Storyteller exhibition launch. This conference, the 7th conference, resulted key messages. The first is AHP7 highlighted that health is a basic human right, and biodiversity provides ecosystem services to fulfill this human right, and that human, animal, and environmental health are strongly interconnected. The second is this conference also brought attention to the robust ASEAN response to the COVID-19 crisis in the ACRF, the region strategy in advancing towards a sustainable and more resilient future. And the last is the ASEAN also demonstrated the progress and best practices from AHPs and showcased innovation in terms of participatory planning and collaborative management, sustainable ecotourism, law enforcement, on-the-ground conservation activities, and capacity building activities and national protected area planning and policy reforms. For the way forward, AHP7 result from the first is incorporate the wealth of knowledge and best practices shared at the AHP managers and AHP managers meeting into the development of AHP Regional Action Plan 2023 until 2030. Then this result also engaged the environment sector in the One Health paradigm. And the third is sustain conservation activities and effective management of AHPs by building financial resilience and sustainability. And then to promote nature-based solutions to address the compounding threats of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. The fifth is promote and scale up public-private sector partnerships that mainstream biodiversity into collaboration agreements, including implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The next is establish a business and biodiversity platform in the ASEAN region to continuously engage and gain the support of the private sector. Also to ensure the participation of women, youth, and local communities in the decision-making process, and then use cultural mapping as a strategic tool for a holistic and sustainable approach in biodiversity conservation. And then the last is encourage the use of innovative methods in various aspects of biodiversity conservation and protected area and AHP management. In 7th ASEAN Heritage Park Conference, we proposed the AHP, the ASEAN Heritage Park Conference today with the theme ASEAN Heritage Park, ASEAN's contribution to achieving the Biodiversity Plan. And we hope in this ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference in the 8th, we can strengthen the role of AHPs in contributing to the implementation of the Biodiversity Plan and enhance protected area management through science-based and inclusive approaches, promote nature-based solutions for climate resilience, ecosystem restoration, sustainable livelihoods, and mobilize resources and partnership to sustain conservation across the ASEAN region. This is my presentation, and thank you very much for your kind attention. Selamat siang.
Thank you very much, Mr. 𝘍𝘬𝘰𝘨𝘀𝘀. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to give us a little overview of what are the things we would look forward to in the parallel sessions of the conference, we will hear from the representatives of the sessions. As I call on your name, may I invite the speakers to limit their session pitch to about 3 minutes. May I call on Ms. Asi Budiati, Team Leader and Climate Change Expert, Technical Assistant Facility to the Green Team Europe Initiative to provide an overview of the Session 1. Please welcome.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests, ASEAN member states, on behalf of the TAF-GTEI, my name is Asi. I'm the team leader of TAF-GTEI. It's a regional mechanism under the European Union to support ASEAN member states. So today at 1:30 p.m., we will have an NBS session. In this session, we will have basically two two hand-in-hand sessions. The first one is, well, I have our expert here, Sebastian, over there. He will introduce the 70 different NBS solutions that we just launched 3 days ago. We work together with ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. We will host the ASEAN NBS platform hosted by ACB. And then this session, we will walk through with the ASEAN Park Manager on how to implement NBS into your park area. So we will identify what are the challenges, the obstacles, who are the institutional setup, and then also the opportunities, what are the benefits of the NBS, and then what the various options of NBS practices that you could implement. And then on the second session, together with the ADB, we will develop a project proposal. So based on the project design that we will develop in the first session, we will develop a project proposal with the support from ADB, because EU just recently committed through the ASEAN Nature Solutions Finance Hub, a 30 million euro that will be managed by ADB. And we hope that from this discussion, we could develop 5 different project proposals that we could link with ADB as a follow-up. So that will be our session this afternoon. I really encourage you to come. It will be on the first floor. Yeah, a bit outside. So from the lift, you just go right. And then we have a booth outside where I encourage you to come and then ask questions, anything related with NBS. And then tomorrow we will have EMET session We have an expert comes from Brussels to introduce what is this 𝘕𝘦. As mentioned by our First Secretary of EUD Vietnam earlier, this is a tools that is produced by European Union being used in Africa, and then this will be the first introduction of what 𝘕𝘦 is for ASEAN. And then yesterday we just had a successful delivery of Rome tools. And then I'm thank everyone, all the member states, for your active participation. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Asi. May I call on Mr. Jansen Meyer, Director, Technical Services, MERL, IMA World Health, Lutheran World Relief, to provide an overview of the session 2, please.
Good morning, everyone. Before I introduce the session, just a quick show of hand. How many of you have heard of One Health and thought this is extra work? So even very briefly, I think we're all in good hands, because if you raise your hand mentally, even very briefly, you're in good company. As mentioned, I'm Jansen Meyer. I'm concurrently country representative of IMA World Health in the Philippines, and as well as Director of Monitoring, Evaluation, Research and Learning, covering East Africa, Europe, Middle East, and Asia. Session 2 is co-organized by IMA World Health along with ACB, and is entitled Advancing One Health Through Biodiversity Conservation, Wildlife Management, and Whole of Society Approach. In this session, we will explore the interconnected challenges facing biodiversity, health, and ecosystems, highlighting the critical importance of One Health approach. As I saw a while ago, not many people actually are familiar with One Health, and I think this will be a very good opportunity for you to situate your work within the One Health framework. That session is composed of 2 parts, as shown on the screen. In the first part, we'll focuses on biodiversity, health and emerging risks, and the global and regional One Health landscape, while the second discusses the advances and future of One Health through a whole of society approach. So what's the difference between the 2 sessions? The first session will present a big picture view of biodiversity loss, climate pressure, and land use changes, and how they shape health risk across our region. For many of you in AHP, none of this is new. This is essentially what you're doing and what you're trying to improve on. You see these changes every day, sometimes before the rest of us even finish drinking our morning coffee. So this is part of your daily life, your lived experience, that also affects us as we go through our normal life. In part 2, we move from understanding the risk to exploring what we can actually do about them. This session is about how One Health comes alive in a real landscape, real communities, and real institutions, including yours. To be honest, your work sits at the center of this approach, this One Health approach. As One Health talks about the interconnection between human health, animal health, and environmental health, the environmental health is the foundation. Whatever happens to the environment will affect animal health, will affect human health. So for this, really, the concept is not new. Many of you have been practicing One Health long before it actually had a catchy name. Whenever you protect habitats, restore forests, reduce human-wildlife conflict, or partner with communities, you're essentially reducing disease risk and supporting people well-being. You're basically doing public health work without the paperwork of saying that you're a doctor or someone from the medical field. As I've said, you're already doing this. Healthy ecosystem reduce spillover risk. Sustainable wildlife management protects communities. Intact habitat builds resilience. You work without even knowing that it's part of One Health. You help prevent health emergencies that none of us want to respond to on a Friday night during Christmas season in the Philippines, right? So, by the end of this session, we hope you'll walk away with a clearer sense of how One Health framework applies to your work, what policy and governance opportunities exist, and how collaboration across sector can strengthen both biodiversity and health outcomes. So I'll see you in our session later this afternoon after lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen Mayer. May I call on next Ms. Sarah Grace Ancheta, Programs Officer, Small Grants Program, HCP, to provide an overview of Session 3. Please welcome.
Xin chào, good morning. Please allow me to provide you an overview of Session 3, Building Meaningful Partnerships, Lessons Engaging Indigenous Peoples, Local Communities, Youth, and Women. This session highlights the critical roles of indigenous peoples, local communities, youth, and women as primary stewards of biodiversity. It will also showcase lessons learned, strategies, and good practices for fostering meaningful partnerships and inclusivity in protected area management, biodiversity governance, and conservation actions across the ASEAN. Session 3 has 3 parts. First is the plenary presentations. Second is panel discussions. And third is World Cafe. The plenary presentation segment is about championing biodiversity conservation, recognizing indigenous peoples, local communities, youth, and women as nature's stewards. This segment features presentations from the youth and women leaders, as well as experiences and initiatives working closely with indigenous peoples and local communities. For the panel discussions in Part 2, it will tackle about enhancing conservation efforts through the meaningful participation of indigenous people, local communities, youth, and women, as in the case of the Small Grants Program. And the last part is the World Cafe, focusing on co-creating inclusive approaches to protected area management and biodiversity conservation. Building on the insights from the plenary presentations and panel discussion, the interactive workshop will engage participants in exploring inclusive strategies for protected area management through a World Cafe format. We warmly welcome you to Session 3 on Indigenous Peoples, Local Communities, Youth, and Women, happening today, December 3, 1:30 to 5 p.m. at Yen Duk 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. Next, may I call on Ms. Monina Ann Seguin, Program Officer, HCB, to provide an overview for Session 4. Please join me in welcoming her.
Good morning, everyone. Allow me to present to you the session overview for Session 4. Building upon the outcome of the recent sub-regional dialogue and workshop of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework Targets 2 and 3, this session is entitled Restoring Ecosystems, ASEAN's Pathways in Achieving the KMGBF Target 2. The session underscores the linkages of the 2 targets in advancing regional efforts in biodiversity conservation, achieving the 30 by 30 initiative and the KMGBF. The session highlights the various efforts of the ASEAN member states and to proactively address the concerns through the NBSAP and the national commitments to eradicate and reverse degradation. The ASEAN Heritage Parks and the ASEAN Green Initiative exemplify the best practices in restoration, enhancing and protecting the integrity of ecosystems. The session aims to showcase ASEAN's initiative in scaling up restoration and its nexus with Target 3, contributing to biodiversity recovery and climate resilience. The session is composed of two segments. First, from global goals to local actions, policy, planning, and governance for protected area restoration. This presents the national commitments for Target 2, or ecosystem restoration of select ASEAN member states. The session also highlights the strategies and advances in restoration, both at the national level and within protected areas and key biodiversity areas. It showcases the good practices in restoration that we have in the AHPs. Meanwhile, the second part is scaling up restoration, innovations and tools. This part presents the available methods that we have, the platforms and tools that support and enhance restoration efforts. It includes discussions and strategies of ecosystem restoration of one of our ASEAN Green Initiative through the 𝘕𝘠 program. And also, the session highlights the available tools for site species matching, providing scientific and technical support. Furthermore, the session underscores the role of biodiversity data in strengthening restoration approaches, including the monitoring tool that we have for restoration or firm. I invite everyone to join tomorrow, session 4. We're located there beside the registration. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Monina. Next, I would like to invite Dr. 𝘕𝘦𝘢𝘮𝘁, Project Manager, Chief Technical Advisor, ACB ASEAN in MAPS Project, to give an overview of Session 5. Please welcome.
Good noon, everyone. I'm here to invite you to Session 5. It's all about how the ASEAN is going to contribute to the 30 by 30. So it will have two sessions, two parts. The first one will be on discussions on connectivity patterns. So you will experience the visuals on how fish are traveling across the large marine ecosystems in the ASEAN. And we will also hear from the EAF, the East Asian Australasian Flyway, on how connectivity works in estuarine areas. So the second part of this session would be on the tools. So we will hear about the IMET, some experience on how the 30 by 30 is being implemented in Vietnam, and on the management effectiveness tools. And we will also hear about the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard. It was mentioned earlier today by the GBF, and see how the structure provides information and helps you establish trends on biodiversity in the region. So the final presentation will be on a gap analysis in the region, and you will hear from Tim on how gap analysis is being used to plan for protected areas in the region. So thank you very much, and see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. 𝘕𝘦𝘢𝘮𝘁. And lastly, may I call on Ms. Corazon A. de Gias, Junior Acting Director, Programs Department of ACB, to give an overview of the Session 6. Please welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Session 6 is titled Sustainable Finance and Resource Mobilization for Protected Area Management in ASEAN. It is a known fact that the region faces inadequate financing for the development and management of protected areas, relying mainly on traditional funding sources that are quite limited and unpredictable. Protected areas require a sustainable source of financing to support general administration, maintenance of buildings, vehicles, equipment, law enforcement, species and habitat monitoring, scientific studies, outreach and awareness programs, and tourism management. Mobilizing adequate and sustainable financing is essential for meeting the goals of the Biodiversity Plan and ensuring long-term biodiversity conservation in ASEAN. Session 6 will explore how ASEAN can scale up resource mobilization while strengthening partnerships and financing strategies, giving particular emphasis to the AHP program as a platform for piloting and showcasing sustainable financing models that directly support protected area management, biodiversity-friendly livelihoods, and community participation. This session will highlight the best practices, opportunities, and lessons on how ASEAN can leverage sustainable finance to secure long-term conservation, protection, and resilience of its most important ecosystems. Gathering together a very credible and capable roster of resource speakers, the session aims to identify the current status, needs, and gaps in financing within the protected areas across ASEAN, showcase innovative financing mechanisms that strengthen sustainable financing and resource mobilization for effective protected area management across ASEAN, to highlight best practices and lessons on leveraging sustainable finance for long-term ecosystem conservation, protection, and resilience in ASEAN, and contextualize the importance of sustainable financing and resource mobilization to achieve broader development goals for protected areas. Please do join us in this parallel session on December 4 from 8:30 in the morning to 12 noon at room Tanlang number 2 on the first floor. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now you have heard from the different parallel sessions. I hope that the overview that they provided will help you decide on which session you will join. And we have a little bit change in the room of the session 1, which will be held in Thanh Lam 2 room, and session 3 will be held at In Đức Hall. Thank you very much. And at this point, I will wish you a day full of inspiration and engaging interactions. Thank you and see you at the upcoming activities. Thank you very much for joining us today.